Hello, and welcome back to the Financial Freedom for the Average Person course. And this is our second exercise, and there'll be a lot of them as we go through. And this is another, all of them are powerful, but this is another good one, and it's an exercise I've used a lot with a lot of people. Basically, this is taking a look at your future state, and we'll get into this now. Now, when people start thinking about their future, where are you going to be in 10 years? Where are you going to be in 20 years? Where are you going to be in 30 years? You actually know a lot more about your life than and where it's going to go, or at least have a good idea where it's going to go from where you're at. I had the opportunity to attend a number of presentations from futurists. Very intriguing, very interesting. When you start putting the dynamics of what's going on in the country, age populations, growth, things like that, you can actually make some pretty reasonable recommendations or observations. Um, and what happens to us? We age. You're in school. You got an idea when you're going to graduate. You've got an idea where you're gonna what you want to be or where you want to go. So you start laying these things in there, and then this helps build your goals or seeing what you can line up. Now, sometimes you need to be aware of things and be able to plan for them. Other things just need to be aware of. You may know when you need a new car, may want to know when you want to buy a house, things like that. You like for me, a big shock a year ago was I hit 65. Well, that turned into Medicare. Well, I can't control that. I knew it was going to happen, but I knew based on that when I was going to need to make decisions on what I was going to do with Medicare. So all these things that you can lay out. So I'm going to share with you an exercise that one of the ones that I did a few years ago, and we'll see what you think. Before I get into the actual exercise, I'm going to just step back, and again, what I would do is I'd have people sit down with me. We'd take out a sheet of paper and we would write down either it's going to be a 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 30-year plan. Sometimes for me, I would take out 3 sheets of paper. And what I recommend you do is take out 3 sheets. And then on each one, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. In each of the papers, write down the facts you know or reasonably expect to occur during that period. How old you'll be, or do you have children? Are you going to have children? Do you want to have children? Where do you anticipate living? What's your education level? Do you want to go back to school? Do you want to do things? Do you want to travel, second home, whatever? I think you can see you start seriously thinking about where you want to be over those years and what life is basically going to deal to you over those years. You can start laying out a pretty good plan. So let's take a look at the plan I put together. So here's a 10-year plan for me, and you can see it's pretty rough. This doesn't have to be fancy stuff, and you don't have to write things in every year. I wrote down things that were important on the years that I saw. So yeah, I put my name right up at the top, and it was a 10-year projection, and this was back in 2018. It was January. I do a lot of my planning in January. So that time I was 58 years old, had 3 grandchildren, and uh, I'm doing an early retirement. I know my son's going to graduate, so I look at 2019 short end. Okay, I hit 19 in 2019. I know it's going to turn 60. That means I can start collecting my military retirement. So I did that. I know I wanted to possibly get back into teaching. So if I want to do that, I need to figure out how I can lay that out into a goal. Um, then I was going to start looking at doing oil wells on some property we have in Ohio. So if I want that to happen in 2019, I need to start contacting companies, things like that. But again, it leads to a goal. Then I also know that my son's probably going to go work for Sandia National Labs. And he did for a short period of time. And, then, I'm looking at that military health care kicking in, so I need to make some changes there. So knowing that in 2019 is a year out, actually a year and a half out, all right, if there's things I need to plan, I can plan them. Looking forward in 3 years, and in 2022, I knew, well, I can start Social Security then. Okay, I'd like to build a new home. Want to maybe have a business going at that time. So again, laying out the things, look at the plans 3 years ahead. Jump ahead to 2025. I know my daughter is going to be eligible to get out of the military. Don't know if she will. She's a doctor. Um, we'll talk more about kids and things and raising them right later. But I know that she might want to start a business. So, I might be looking at helping her start a business. So, how would I lie that out? So then I'm looking at 10 years out, 2028. All right, I'm 68. Oh my God. And we're getting close to that. By that time, I was thinking, okay, we're probably going to have 8 grandchildren. That seems like a reasonable goal. Now it's up to the kids to produce, but and by the way, they didn't. They didn't. We have three, and we're probably done with three. But at that point in time, I thought, okay, if I want to help those kids in school, I would like to give them maybe 100,000 each. So 2028, can I generate $800,000 and put it back for them? If I got 10 years to work on it, and again, if I'm going to generate that amount, I don't have to have it in 2028, but 100,000 each would be a great goal. 3 grandkids makes it a lot easier. But anyways, you can see I can lay that out. Now, as I get into further steps where I'm actually putting together actual goals, now I can lay this out and you know, what gets measured gets done. You lay out, just write out a plan, and then you go forward and you accomplish it. Anyway, very positive, and I hope all of you take the time to take a look at where your future's going. And actually, it's kind of fun to do this. So if you're married or with a girlfriend, that's also kind of fun. Of course, I will warn you that if you start scheduling weddings and kids doing this, you can get yourself in a bunch of trouble. So tread carefully if you do that. Anyway, thank you, and we'll move on to the next exercise.